Hello peoples, we are here today to learn how to build dynamic buildings in Cinema 4D. I'm Alexey, I'm here from ace5studios.com and we're recording this for CG Tats Plus. Now, I actually came up with this idea myself while I was building if you know my stuff, I got this thing about a year ago. I made this animation of this car getting picked up by a helicopter flying through a city. And when I came to building the city, like obviously it's still previs, I needed to, have full creative control over like the sizes of the buildings. So, if I want these buildings to be a bit taller, these to be a bit higher. And so I'm like, well, how do I do this, effectively? And, this is what I came up with, the method that I'm about to show you. Basically, it's building a building which can be, modified easily. Here, actually. Well, I'll find the file, I'll show it to you first. Okay, here we go. This is the file that I'm talking about. Like, this is one of the scenes in it. Basically, the car flies through the city. It's like, it just fell off a helicopter and, it's like flying through. It's a bit laggy right now because I'm doing the video record and stuff. Basically, then I have a couple more shots of it, kind of flying down. Here I have this other one, which is, I think this is this is the one where it's flying. No, it's also flying through. Okay, maybe it's this one here. Last one. Yeah, the last shot, sorry. Okay, so here, see again when we have the car flying in and then the camera kind of following it in. Okay, this is not exactly where I was going, but the idea is, as you see, like here, wait, where is it? Shot 5. Yeah, while it's flying through, like I have these buildings in the background and there's a whole street full of buildings. Like if I show you, edit the camera, see like there's a bunch of boxes behind, but on the actual around, like on the main street, I have all these buildings, and I need, I need to have control over them on, how how they look. So what I did was I have this is like what I'm going to teach you to build, but slightly more complex. Is basically I have these little circles on top of each building, which I can select, and then I can move them up and down. If this ever stops lagging. So yeah, I can make the building taller, and it is meant to update automatically, but I think actually it is possible that I made these to make it work faster. I baked them, but the idea is you have a building which you can move, and you can make it taller and shorter. I'll find your proper building. Sorry, pause. Okay, here it is. I found it. This is the the normal building, one of the ones that I just showed you. Like my street's aligned with these buildings, and each one of them has this little thing at the top. And I can make it smaller or taller depending on, where I need it, or how I need it to look. And this was, so if I have like a whole bunch of them, like a whole line of them, I can, draw the skyline very quickly. And then later I can go and replace them with, proper high-res models and whatnot. I'm not sure if these were built. Yeah, see that right now they're built in this way where I have the building, like the cloner object. And then I have the elements on a separate, like if you show you, I'll hide them. See, I have each of the elements, the constituent elements, as a separate kind of, object, which I can easily replace. Like if I want to say if I want to have more, see 7, and then I want them to be closer packed. I only change it on this object that's out here, which I can copy into a new scene and give it to, a modeler or something, and then he'll model the facade. And then I'll just plug it right back into the null object right here. So I'm going to show you how to use these instance objects. So if you, for example, want to make a roof object, and also I'll show you how to make cloner objects so you can have many options so it's easier to change them. This is a relatively simple one. I'll show you how to make a slightly more dynamic one. So anyway, let's get into it. Let's close all these windows. Close all. No. Okay. So let's start with building a base for our building. This will be our base. We have cube. Let's make it a bit bigger. Let's add some. Let's go to the faces mode, make it editable. Let's add some loop cuts. We go to the knife tool, pressing the K key, and we change this to loop. And we go. So it's going to be the road. We can go to the V menu using the V key, or mouse button 3, which is like the back button I think on your mouse. go loop selection, selected, make a new material, make it nice and dark, drag it onto the selection, and the selection tag is made automatically, and now we have our road. And we're gonna call this the foundation. Change back to object mode, foundation. Okay, our next thing we need to build is the actual, the lobby of the building. So let's make another cube. Let's move it up. Scale it out. Let's leave some room. Oops, let's leave some room. Pull it out, and this is going to be the shape of our lobby. For the life of me, I do not understand why it is so laggy. Nope, still thinking it's probably the screen recorder that's making the lag, but it's just view frame rate. Sorry, this is, by the way, if you want to see frame rate, you can go Shift V and you go HUD and you go frames per second. Yeah, it's not a very good frame rate, but hey, it'll have to do for now. So this is the lobby. Let's give it a bit of detail here. Go to make it editable, go to polygon mode, change it to the knife tool, and let's do some cuts here, another cut, some doors. They're not going to be very even, but they will serve our purpose. Right, another cut here. Another cut here. By the way, if you want to like go to rectangular selection momentarily without like switching modes and stuff, on your mouse, if you have a mouse button, like if you have a back and forward button on your mouse, and they're set to generic buttons, this has to be in the settings of your mouse, you can use the forward button to just, while you hold it, you can click and you have a selection tool just momentarily, and it goes back to wherever you were. Very convenient. So let's get these windows, let's get these doors, and hit delete. Ta-da! We have our lobby. If you want to make it a bit nicer, you just go Control A and you go D, and let's increase this to P1, and let's go and do this. Let's go, instead of extrude, let's go smooth shift. And let's change subdivision to like 2. Or 1. Yeah, close enough. No, I don't like it. Let's go back to D, normal extrude. There we go. Now we have some thickness in the walls. This is our lobby. So this is just a proxy, it's not the final, obviously. It's what you would give to a modeler or whoever it is after you're done with it. And they can model it. Let's go back to the model tool. Okay. Now, our next order of business is we make the first floor. This building, unlike the building I showed you before, this one's going to have 2 types of floors. It's going to have the first type of floor, like the one that's at the bottom, and then it's going to have the second type of floor, which is the top. You notice that a lot of buildings have it, like they sometimes have bricks walls on the first couple of floors, and then they have like just normal cement or anything like that. So let's make the first floor. Let's call this lobby. Whoops, lobby 1. Also a good idea to put these into nulls, but we'll do that later. Not a big deal. Let's change our display to line so we can see what we're doing. Okay, our next cube. We move it up. Sorry, this Y thing I clicked there is because when you press the Y on the keyboard, it disables movement in Y direction. So I just turned it back on. When I typed lobby in accidentally, I disabled it. Now we have this cube here. Let's make it nearly the same size. Make it editable by hitting the C key, go to point mode. Once again, rectangular selection tool, very useful. But don't forget to go into it and change it to untick this, because otherwise it only selects the visible points. Now it selects all 4 points. Also, quick tip, while you're modeling stuff, if you go to Shift V again and you go to the HUD option, you can go selected points, selected polygons, selected edges. So now when you select stuff, you know how many points you have selected. See, 6, too much. 4, or too many, whatever. Correct. Now we move it across, and we move these across to here. Okay, this is going to be our one. Just move it up so it's just above. This is going to be our floor 1 base. Okay, good. Now let's add a facade to it. The facade won't be very complicated. It will involve, once again, more cubes. Because cubes are great to make stuff out of, because, well, you know, most things are square. Especially in buildings. Or at least nowadays you can get away with everything being square. So, we have this cube here. We're going to... And let's have the first generation of floors will have balconies. So, let's copy it. Let's rotate it. Let's move it down here. Then Ctrl-C, Ctrl-V. And let's just get this one here, make it editable. Go to the polygon mode. K tool for loop cut, for knife cut. Let's add, let's press S. S is to focus on the object. Let's go do this, and yep, and now we're gonna go spacebar to the selection tool. Sorry, change it back to this one. Let's go select this, hold the control down key to unselect stuff you don't want, and now we press the D key to extend it. And let's move this cube over. And we have our balcony. I reckon it's a pretty good balcony. We could add some materials to it. Should stick this black thing onto it. There you go, balcony. So let's get all these, group them. This is called balcony. Or, you know, yeah, balcony. Now let's stick it into a cloner object. So MoGraph, cloner object. Hold the Alt key while clicking on it, and it'll automatically be zeroed. It'll be placed in the same place, and the object you had selected will be put in the cloner object. So let's change this to 0, and it's obviously the wrong one. Z. There we go. And and we have some windows. Let's move this cloner object across a bit. And we have balconies. Very nice. I mean, obviously you could put them by hand, but for the time being, this is the simplest way. Okay, now, what we're going to do is we're going to put this together, and we're going to call it first floor. Now, how are we going to add more of them? Obviously, we're going to put the cloner object. We're going to put this into a cloner object again. MoGraph cloner object, and increase the height. But you'll see in a second that this actually is irrelevant. This is just temporarily, so we can see what we're working with. Okay. Now, as you work, you're going to want to be able to change the size of this floor, for example, right? Like you're gonna go, wait, or like a director comes in, or you know, anyone whose opinion matters, and goes, these floors are too tall, make them shorter. So you make them shorter, then bam, your thing is all out of whack. You know, the cloner, you have to realign the distance between it. It's just, sorry, wrong cloner. Let's call this Windows. With this cloner, you have to realign the height again, you know, and it's very inconvenient. So what we're going to do is we're going to tie this height of this object to the distance of, you know, how far this thing goes. So we're going to add an Xpresso tag to this cloner. We're going to drag the cloner in it. We're going to call this also first floor cloner. Actually, first cloner, because we know. Let's call it, yeah, first floor cloner. Okay, and we're going to get this thing out. Now, so how do we read the height of this object? If you look in the parameters, it has coordinates, it has properties, but it doesn't really have anything to do with height, you know. Like, has scale velocity, but that doesn't really help us. You know, we have scale, but that's not really size. That's just scale, you know, proportionately to the original object. So we're going to pull the position of this point here. See here, you can see its position. Its y position is 47. And this point, which is minus 51. And we're going to feed it into the cloner object. But first, let's move all these out clones. Let's move them all. So this point, let's go move all these, select all these points here. And let's move the y positions to 0. That will make life a lot easier. Yeah, okay. And now we go back to model tool, we move them back down. So they're just touching the floor. And then we move these guys up here, lower. Okay, so if you notice, there's this thing called a structure thing here. And when you select the point, it'll tell you what point you have selected, and it'll give you the coordinates of that point. So how do we pull these values out? Well, we make a new Xpresso node. It is called object. No, it is not called object. It is called object index. Yes. Or it is called object. Sorry about this. Yeah, it's called object index. Yeah, so we get basic properties. We go object, we plug it in here. Yeah. And then we go instance. We gotta get a value out of this. So first flow cloner here. When you click on this, you have one. Okay guys, sorry, mental blank there, not object index. It's just all these nodes look the same. So yeah, what we're looking for is point. See, it has similar, you know, ports. Yeah, you plug it into object, and then you go point index. So we have point index number 5 because we have it selected here, number 5. So let's plug in number 5. Oops, number 5, and then let's clone this and plug it in again. And get this point object, and this one is number 4. So here we plug in number 4. And now we're going to subtract one of the positions to the other position, as in the position from one to the other, in order to get, you know, the distance. Actually, we could just use a distance node, probably. Yeah, it's even easier. Screw subtraction. Math, calculate distance. Position 1, position 2. And let's just check what we get here. We're going to use a, where is it? We have this wonderful little node which is called result. Always useful to have it hanging around your Xpresso window because you can check what you're getting. So let's drag and drop this into here. And the result is, we're not getting a result. There we go, 92. And if we move this up, 130. See? Good. So now if we go into the scale tool and press the T key, scale it up, the result changes. See, we're getting there. Okay, so we want this thing to feed into the distance between the floors. So let's have a look where our floors are. The distance between the floors is the PY. So we go to object, we go object properties, PY, and we feed it in. And so far, there you go, it works. So now when we get more floors, it works. And if we get this base and we scale it up, it moves all by itself. How cool is that? See? So we've got the base of what we need, right? But we're going to, remember I told you we're going to make this more complex than what I had. Like right now, basically, you know, we're done. You know, you have the count and there you go, you have your own interactive building. You just need to tie something to the position. But we're going to have 2 different floors. So let's start making the next floor. Okay, second floor. So let's make this, let's copy this first floor cloner. Now we have 2 and move it up. Now, first thing we're going to do is obviously the second floor. So let's make the base slightly smaller. And let's scale it down. Okay, maybe a bit too much. Just a tad. And let's change these windows from, let's get rid of the balconies. And let's make them wider. There we go. No, let's reduce the number of windows to like, and increase the width. And move it across and back into the building. So there you go. Top floors gonna be like this. Now, we come into a slight problem. If we move these floors up, for example, more of them, those floors aren't really where they're meant to be, are they? They are not. So, we are going to move those floors according to how many floors we have here. How we do that first. First of all, we need to plug both these floors. We're going to plug everything into a null, LG, because then it's in local space and we can move this around without affecting any of the connections inside. So these are second floor cloner, and this is the second floor. Always label stuff. It is, especially when you're working with Xpresso, it is incredibly important to label your stuff. Floor to base. Now, let's keep going with this. Yep. So, we have to get the position of this second floor object, of this second floor cloner, to be exactly where the first floor cloner ends. So, how do we do that? Well, we go to our trusty Xpresso. Let's put an Xpresso on our main object, so we don't affect the Xpressos that we have over there. So, we are going to get the position of this cloner here, just drag it in. We're going to calculate how high up it is, so, its height from wherever it starts. So its height is going to be 5 of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so the number of these, so this count value here, let's pull it out. Let's go object properties count, and it's going to be multiplied by the height of each one. So it's going to be multiplied by this py. So let's go basic properties, object properties, py. And we're going to multiply these together. But there's just one little thing you have to notice. Cloner objects, for some reason, they don't always, how do you say it? They're not always in exactly the right position. Like, see, this is why I was trying to align that object initially. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this axis, go to the axis tool, to the very bottom of it. And now we get this whole cloner and move it down. And yet still we have the same problem. Honestly, sometimes I'm just absolutely at a loss why this happens. It just does. It is incredibly annoying. And there you go. Okay, so once you move it a couple of times, you get it. And now let's move this back down. Let's just go and align it so it's perfect. There we go. And now we move the actual cloner down. Too far. There we go. Okay, good. So we still have a cloner of the count, and we have the height. Because if you don't do this, you'd have to subtract the values from each other, and it's a whole mess. Like this, it's easy. You have height of each clone from the initial position. Yeah, that's also what we're gonna need. We're gonna need, because this will give us the height of the object, but it's not gonna give us the position of it. So we're gonna go coordinates, position, y. That's the initial position. That's where it is in space. See this position. That's where it is. There you go. Y here. See? Okay. So let's start multiplying these together. Let's go new node, Xpresso, calculate math. And change this to, keep it as real, sorry, change this to multiply. And let's plug our count and our py. And then, so this will give us the height of the object. And then we need to add it, so let's just click and drag this thing, change this to add. We need to add it to the position y. And we should get the y position, which is up here. So we drag our second cloner in, and we go coordinates, position, y. And we drag it in. And see, this is our problem, it dips, because we have that stupid axis misalignment. So let's go here. Let's align this axis again. Nope, wrong object. Second floor object. S to find it. And move the axis to the bottom of the object. Sorry. Q, by the way, disables and enables the cloner. And now we move the cloner up, and again we have Q. We have this little annoyance that its position. So here, now we have to move this. Nope, that's not what we move. We move its axis again to align with the bottom of that axis. And now, wonderful. We have the cloner object. If we move it across, there's nothing there. Okay, good. And now, which is, remember when I tried to move it, it didn't move? That's why it didn't move. Because now, when we change the amount of floors on this one, it moves with it. See? Awesome. We are nearly there. And we can change the value of each one of them and change. See? We have two different types of floors now. Let's just to separate them, let's make a white material and plug it onto the second floor. There we go. Let's get the windows, plug some black on them. Awesome. Now we have a building with two different types of floors, right? So you're already thinking, wow, that's pretty cool. But there's more. We're going to be adding a roof to it. So let's make a cube. Now before we do this, actually, let's check this quickly, because sometimes you will notice if we change this, nope, there's no lag. Okay, all good. Because see, if you change, I don't think there's a problem here because there's only very few. Yeah, you can't see it yet, but you might see it later. There's this stuff about priorities. If we don't naturally bump into it, I will actually show you an example what priorities are and why it's important. But yeah, we're leaving that for later. So our next step is to make the roof. This cube is going to be a roof cube. So let's stick it in here. Let's make it a bit smaller. And let's make it a bit Empire State Building-ish, eh? So let's make it editable. Let's get this top one, let's bring it up. Let's press the I key to shrink it down, press the D key to extrude, I key to shrink it down, D key to extrude, I key to shrink it. Oops, too much shrinking. Yep, and then let's just go. Then go D, and then let's go D again and scale it in. And antenna. There you go, this is going to be my own kind of, it's going to be my own kind of Empire State Building thingy. Okay, back to edit mode. So let's put the roof cube in a null and call it roof null. And we're going to plug it in here. And on this Xpresso object, we now have to make sure that when we move this second floor, we have to make sure that the roof is above it. So we're going to do the same thing as we did with this one, but we're going to, plug it in. So to save us time, instead of redoing this whole thing again, what we're going to do is we're going to select these three, we're going to control drag them down. See the little plus thing occurred? If I just drag, no plus. If I press control and drag, little plus thing appears. And now we're going to change this from first cloner, see here it says reference, which object serving, to second cloner. So now this position, which we get out here, will be on top of this Y corner. And we're going to feed it into the roof null. Why are we feeding it into the roof null instead of the object? Well, because if you want to change it now, you can change whatever you want inside the null and the position will still be the same. This is very important. So let's feed this into, click and drag onto the blue thing and then go coordinates, position, position Y. Wonderful. Now, as you notice, the roof cube moved a bit, so let's move it to the right size. Great. Okay, so now if we change the height, see, you notice how there's lag? This is what I'm talking about. Here you go, with naturally. This is the priorities issues, because we changed the height of the first floors by using the counting, but that roof thing for some reason is like lagging, like, you know, it reaches there, but you know, you have to click and then it jumps. Because every time you click, it recalculates the frame. Because right now what's happening is, first, it is calculating the position of the roof. See here, like this is how Cinema calculates stuff. It calculates stuff as it is in the object manager. First it calculates the roof, then it calculates the position of the second floor, then it calculates the position of the first floor. Usually when you only have 2 objects that are interrelated, it's not a big deal. But when you start getting into 3 objects or more, it becomes a big deal. So we wanted first to calculate wherever the position of the first floors are, because they will affect the position of the second floors, and then they will affect the position of the, oops, wrong place, of the roof. Now, see, now, hopefully, when we change this, we won't have such a problem. We still do have a problem. Okay, let's figure out why we have this problem. Maybe it is because second floor should be up there. Nope, still same problem. Okay. Let us see why this happens. Why the roof null? Because I've had this problem when I was making it the first time, and I fixed it. So, it is all possible. I say that this works fine. But when this starts changing, we suddenly get this lagging in it. Which is happening because we are pulling... So let's see, we have the first cloner, we calculate its position, calculate the second cloner's position, and the roof nulls. Ah, I know why. Because this Xpresso is not, for the roof, is not meant to be on this object. So what we do is we control click drag this over here, go back, we open this Xpresso, we delete this roof stuff, we go to this Xpresso, we delete this first floor cloner stuff, because now we want the roof to calculate once all of this is calculated. So now when we change this, we have no lag. See? You understand what happened? Just in case, one more time I'll go over it. Right now we were calculating these correctly, but we were calculating this Xpresso tag first. And this Xpresso tag had the roof, so it was like, where is the roof going to be? And it looks through where everything is, and then it places the roof in that position. And then it but then it goes and sees where the first floor and the second floor are, but their position changes. So the roof position only updates the next time you update. So what you want is you want it to go through these, calculate where they are, and then with this Xpresso check where the roof is meant to be, and then you won't get that lag on it. Just make sure again, see, all smooth. See, so it's important to consider where your Xpresso tag is, or where your, where your calculations are. Like same thing that happens with constraint tags. Like you have this priority thing here where you can change the priority of different objects, but I usually try not to touch it because it just messes up everything. Like here at least you can figure out what the problem is, you can see what it's calculating first, what it's calculating second. But with this one it gives it priorities and stuff which really don't make life any easier. So we have it, hey, we have pretty close to success, right? We have it moving, and it's all very good. Okay, I'm going to leave it. So right now you have this building which is kind of interactive. Obviously, it's not difficult to figure out how to add a null, which you just add a null, like you go null, and you move it up here, and then you can use, as I did with Xpresso, you can calculate the distance between it and the floor plane, and then you can feed that number into the cloner objects. But I will show you how to do this in our next tutorial, as in our next part of the tutorial. For now, I will just leave it as this. This is our building. you can try and figure it out yourself for the time being, but I will also show you on our next day of the tutorial on how to make it interactive, and I'll also show you a bunch of cool stuff on how to use instances so you can, you know, change what each object looks like without, you know, having to go into the object. It'll just be all in the exterior, very easy to use. And yeah, thanks for watching. I hope this helps you. You know, some basic Xpresso stuff. We put some some points out. You know, remember, it's still all interactive. So if we go back into the, you know, into the floor 1 base, and we decide we want to scale it up, we can do it, and you know, it moves. See, actually you get that lag because you're not meant to really animate that. Just leave it still. But yeah, and you know, that's what this method is all about. Okay, I'll see you next time.